Everybody, I'd like to welcome a special guest today onto the Advisory Board podcast. I've got Brit Driscoll with me, and some of you guys probably already know Brit because of her splash over at Drybar, helping them grow from 30 to over $100 million when she was driving marketing. But Brit's got a really cool new venture going on now. She's the co-founder CEO of Squeeze, which is again in the personal service massage, but I would say about as different of a take as I've seen on the massage space, and really an innovative tech-enabled type of experience. So, Britt, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about yourself in franchising and in business and personally. Love to get to know you a bit more.
Thanks, Dave. Well, first of all, I really appreciate you having me. I'm super excited to be here and chat more about Squeeze and all of the feel good things. I guess just really quickly, my background is in marketing and advertising. I started my career on the agency side and got a chance to work with just amazing brands from Disney to Coca-Cola to Barbie and Hot Wheels. And Hot Wheels in particular, we actually created an entire campaign where we scaled the toy cars to life size and executed world record making stunts and did a ton of content with the world's best race car drivers. So I always say that was a real pivotal moment in my career where I really realized that if you have a super big vision and great people around you who are all aligned on making it happen, really anything is possible. And I took a lot of that, momentum and experience and channeled into my next step, which was Drybar, as you were just mentioning. And I was very fortunate to be with that business for 4 years. And really, I say I was there during the rocket ship years where they were just growing like crazy. I started when there were around 25 locations and left when we were close to 100. So it was a wild ride, got to open corporate locations and also onboard franchisees, as well as scale the product line into all the prestige retailers that it is in today. So it was such an amazing ride. I loved building the team and, all the processes and protocols. And one of the things that I rallied so much around with the brand was we always used to say that it wasn't blowouts we were selling. It was the happiness and confidence that came with the blowout. And when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you can take on the world. Mm-hmm. And, there was so much power in just that idea of creating a feel good experience. And it also really tied back to the beginning of my career when I started in experiential marketing. And I just believed so much in the opportunity for brands to create meaningful experiences and connections with the public, with consumers. And that's really a dovetail into what we've built with Squeeze. And Squeeze was really the brainchild of my now business partner, Michael Landau, who is one of the co-founders of Drybar. And I'm fortunate to have the entire Drybar founding team as my business partners and co-founders. So that was a really neat kind of transition going from running marketing to now, being peers. And he was an avid massage goer. And, Michael would always say, and it's funny, I can attest to, he would talk about this all the time when we were building and scaling Drybar. Obviously just didn't have the bandwidth to get it off the ground, but, he would always love the massage itself. It was a very relaxing experience for him and, certainly a reprieve in the stressful world that he was living in, building a business, but everything about the experience was super frustrating to him. And so he would always talk about how he wished that there was just a much more convenient and personalized experience that existed in the space. And then ultimately, when I got to the point of looking for a new challenge, the stars really aligned and we decided to move forward with Squeeze. And so to your point, the way that we look at Squeeze within the overarching massage landscape is we felt like there was a hole in the middle. And this was kind of the case before Drybar too. On one end, there was the low end discount chains, which I always like to say to their credit have made massage accessible to the masses and really created that idea that massage can be part of your regular wellness routine. And then on the flip side of the spectrum, there were the high-end hotels and spas, which are totally lovely and amazing, but unattainable for most people to have a regular experience as part of their routine. And that was kind of the case, like I just said, with Drybar, there's like the fantastic Sam's on one end of the spectrum and the really high-end salons. And there was nothing that brought in that luxurious experience at an affordable price point. So that's what we did with Squeeze. We used the same architect, the same branding team to create, an amazing, whimsical, approachable brand, but then also a very sophisticated and luxurious and beautiful retail design that have, great surprise and light elements and just really so much thought put into every aspect of it. But the biggest differentiation of our experience, and I always like to say that I don't think that it's just within the massage space, I think it's honestly within the overall retail services space, is we've built an end-to-end platform that enables our guests to do everything from book an appointment, set all their personalized preferences, pay, rate, tip, and review, all through the app or online. So that, it's truly a relaxing experience. We like to say our guests walk in and float out. They get to, do everything really at their leisure. So there's no clunky checkout lines, there's no awkward tipping exchanges. And then we've also carried that personalization forward. So not only are they able to set all their massage preferences through the app, like everything from areas of the body you want focused on, what you want avoided, if you want more or less pressure, if you want your table heated, all that information is saved to their profile. The therapist reviews it prior to the guest even walking in the door. But then also when guests get into we call our massage room suites, when they get into their squeeze suite, they're able to adjust lighting within the room. We have 6 different playlists that people can choose from. So things like Zen, your typical spa music, but we also have reggae and piano and waves. And we've got fun seasonal music during the holidays. So again, really trying to create a very customized experience. And then the last feature that I'll mention is we have what we call a ready button on the table. So when the guest has gotten undressed and ready on the table, they're able to hit that button and a light turns on outside the room to notify the therapist to re-enter. And as you can imagine, that's a welcomed feature from both the guest and the therapist experience. So again, just really tried to create a very thoughtful, seamless experience that's that's really kind of eliminating a lot of the clunkiness that exists in the space today.
Yeah, I love that. I really love it because when you've read The E-Myth, I presume. Have you read that book?
I actually haven't.
Okay, it's just kind of an old classic, but it dates itself when you read it. But there's a big section of that book where they talk about the personalized experience that the author had in this resort, this little tiny resort in Northern California. But what you were describing was they built a system around creating a good experience for their guests in a pretty high-end place. And the hotel industry, like the hospitality, they sort of pioneered that concept of a personalized experience. But when I was reading about what you guys are doing inside of the massage therapy space, like it shouldn't be that, like somebody should have done this 50 years ago, 40 years ago, but no, I haven't ever heard of it before. And all those little things that you describe they're the pivotal things that make massage a little awkward. Here I am naked, lying on a table, waiting for someone to show up, and I'm here for 3 minutes and the massage therapist hasn't walked in the door yet. Or I'm a slow changer and they're knocking on the door trying to come in the room, like, are you ready? I'm like, no, not yet. Let me get under like, it's interesting, like how some of those things can be for let's say, an early 30s professional that could become a lifelong customer. It's just enough to put them over the edge. So it's like, that was awkward. I don't think I enjoyed that experience.
Yes, absolutely.
Cold. I want to be warm. I've got cold feet. I love, like my wife and I go sometimes, but it's always manual. Like we got to guide them through, like, hey, can I get a warm blanket? Like, on an app, and they just set their preferences, and every time they show up, it's the same experience. That brand promise is critical for retention.
Yes.
I love what you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and it's interesting because it's great. It's so great for the therapist as well. I mean, as we built this business, we really saw the opportunity to create a really strong employer brand, which I feel like is worth mentioning just in terms of the way that we're thinking about scaling this business is through franchising. I'm a big believer in people. I love championing them, and this is really my first true entrepreneurial venture. And even from our learnings from Drybar, we know that small business owners connected to their local community who care a great deal about providing a great experience, they're going to perform much better than, if we were to scale and grow from a corporate standpoint. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to create and build this experience for, other entrepreneurs, and then equally so for the team, because with everything that we've created on the personalization side for the customer, it's also very empowering for our staff to feel equipped to be able to do a great job and provide a great experience. And so it really is, a win-win across the board.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because the worst thing is when you walk into the room and you don't know what the person wants, and then you've got the awkward 3 to 4 minutes of, oh, you wanted light pressure. I was just, digging into your psoas with my elbow. So, yeah, my wife and I are
Exactly.
on opposite ends of that spectrum. I'm like, make me weep. I'm glad my face is down in the circle so you can't see the alligator tears, because I know I'll feel better for a week if you do that. And my wife's like, no, 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 keep it light, keep it light.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the one other thing too is there's a notes section. So again, there's like a humanoid through our app that you can literally select areas that you want to focus on, more or less pressure, et cetera. But there's also a section where you can write notes. And it's hard to say to someone's face, hey, please don't talk to me. But through the app, you can say that. Like, I would prefer to just have, a very quiet, peaceful experience, or just straight up don't talk to me. And that's well received from the therapist too, because again, they want to deliver a great experience. And so there's just, all sorts of those components that, yeah, we've really eliminated. And I always like to say that, the best ideas really come from personal necessity and or frustration with what doesn't exist. And I think Squeeze is very much an answer to that as it relates to the way things have typically been done in the industry.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But I love the story. Like this ties into a couple of key concepts that I think we can really draw out, that people can learn from, because you've had such a great experience. I didn't know about the Hot Wheels. I mean, wow, what that was so fun.
It was very, very cool.
Yeah, but we won't go into Hot Wheels today. But a couple of questions for you, because now you've gone from working, in a $30 million a year business, growing it, to over 3x. That's a very different environment from starting with a new concept, right?
Yes.
Although this marketing skills and experience, they all apply. Could you share a little bit about, like, what do you love about starting a new concept from a marketing perspective? What is it that drives you and keeps you passionate about that versus running big budgets and national campaigns and the more prestigious, I'd say, side of running a larger company?
Yeah. Gosh, the startup space is such an invigorating one. I would say that I've always really been drawn to the chaos of the unknown, and honestly, just like an empty page and or an unknown path. So I was really excited about the opportunity to build something from scratch. It's been challenging though, also, like, I will be totally honest, especially coming from the experience that I did and having not really had any other startup or entrepreneurial experience. I mean, all of a sudden being responsible for all of the things is overwhelming at times. And
Yeah.
even I always like to say, as a reminder for people, even with the experience that I had and the exposure to all of the other functions within the organization that I did, being on the executive team at Drybar, all of a sudden having to be responsible for them is totally different. So
Yeah.
it's certainly been a very humbling experience for me. I thankfully hired amazing people. In the beginning, I have a chief operating officer who, his name is David Warner, and he's really been my right hand and my partner through building this entire business. And he offsets a lot of, number one, what I don't know, and also my weaknesses. He's very detail oriented. He's got a strong technology background. He understands how to build systems to scale. Whereas again, I was accustomed to really coming into something that already existed and then building from there. So yeah, I mean, I think the important thing to note is, one, you don't need to know all of the things, but it is very important to quickly recognize the things that you don't know and or what you're not good at, and offset them with people who can really help you, because it's a very tricky thing to navigate.
Oh yeah, especially early on. I bet that discovery process of, actually, let me ask you that rather than lead you to a comment there. What was the most awkward part about self-discovery there? Like, where did you find a blind spot you didn't expect? Because that's
Yeah.
a challenge. That's a real big challenge when you're shifting into entrepreneur mode.
So 100%. So I think one of the things that became very clear to me is I always considered myself a pretty detail oriented person and also a very organized person, because I would come in and easily be able to see like the white space and the opportunity and how to build a brand. So like putting plans together and promotions and calendars and, really thinking through like every aspect of how something was going to roll out. When it came to building a business and like the operation side of frequently asked questions from customer service or customer service related things, frequently asked questions, how to really think through training a team from an operations standpoint. It's like, I know what I want the experience to be. I know what I want the end product to look like and to feel like, but really thinking through all of the steps to do so was very challenging for me. And again, thankfully, I had a partner who just, his mind works differently than mine, and could think through the 72 steps that was needed before the last 25 type of thing. So I think for me it was very clear that I am more of the visionary. I'm more of like the big picture person who, and I always knew that to a degree, but again, I always came into spaces that really needed a little bit more support. Whereas all of a sudden I needed a little bit more support, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, tables are turning. Now I need help. So
yeah, I understand the feeling a lot.
Yeah. But it's a good place to be, I think, to have that self-awareness and to be humble and kind of recognizing that you don't really have all the answers and you don't know all the things.
Yeah, and it's hard for me. Sometimes it's hard to let go. As the president of a growing business, it's I have to stop and say, okay, I can do it. I have been doing it. I have someone who can do it better, and it's hard to have that, to flip the humble switch on and say, yeah, they're gonna do better, and I'm frankly, I'll do a B+ for the next 5 years, or they can do an A+, and I don't want to do it. Also, like that's where I convince myself more and more of. There are things I enjoy more. So let me let that go to who's going to enjoy it and do better. And then it's easier for me to really feel like I can let it go,
Exactly. Like, focus your time on your best and highest use.
Yeah, precisely. I love that. So talk to me. I'm going to take a step back for a second to Drybar, if you don't mind. Yeah. So entrepreneurialism, like there's a lot more we're going to dive into, I think, into that. But tell me about the challenges now on the flip side. So, you were growing a company, helping them 3x. Tell me what are some of the bigger differences you've noticed on the scaling growth mode versus the small scale growth mode that you're in right now?
Yeah, I think I was really fortunate at Drybar because there was a collective executive team that came in relatively around the same time, probably within like 6 to 9 months. There were key hires in each functional area. And, certainly Michael and Ali, as the founders and visionaries and, owners of the experience, played in one space. But we had an amazing head of retail and a head of product, also both women. Danielle Bruno ran retail for Drybar, meaning the shops, and product was Kim Natali, who helped to scale the product line in all of the prestige retailers. And so I think, what was really great about that experience was I was able to put together plans to support both sides of the business. And we had such a good camaraderie and understanding of where our roles and responsibilities started and ended, and how we could support each other to really build a great brand. And so I wouldn't even say necessarily, I think it was just like the constant fast pace that was the hardest thing. Was like, we were opening a shop every other week, and we were, launching multiple product lines. And so just this bandwidth, honestly, and just like being able to support the level of growth was overwhelming at times. It's like we all worked around the clock. But I'm grateful because we were all so aligned in wanting this to happen. And again, just like that idea that we were creating this really cool experience for women who, they're walking into boardrooms feeling like badasses, or they're going on their first date and they feel like, they're as beautiful as they possibly could be. There's all those things that we just loved being a part of. So I guess I say that only because if I didn't have that level of partnership and support, I think it would have been really overwhelming and, quite frankly, just frustrating and defeating, because there was no way that, I could have done it alone. So, so thankfully, I think I'm just really grateful. And again, had that not been in place, I think it would have been a lot more difficult. But But it was actually such an amazing ride. It was such an incredible time because we all were kind of, running at the same pace and focusing on the same things. And I think that's another thing that's just so important for a business that size and or any business that's growing as fast as Drybar did was communicating, what are our key priorities? What's the focus? What do we need to like push aside so that we're all really putting the energy into the right places. So I would say that is such a core necessity to be able to be successful in scaling any business. And sometimes that was really hard, was everyone agreeing on like what really were the priorities and the important things. But again, we just had such a good camaraderie and connection that thankfully it all just worked.
Yeah.
With very little sleep.
Yeah, but I find if you have a really true joint vision of what you're accomplishing and you really understand the value of your service to your end consumers, they can get a passion that can supplant all the coffee in the world and really keep you motivated and keep you aligned as a team.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess one more thing to that point. At Squeeze, we've kind of coined our company a feel good company. Obviously, massage makes you feel good, but I'm such a believer that people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Like you do want to feel like beyond the end product or the service that like you're doing good or you're doing better or more for people and I think that certainly, there's a lot that we've put into place at Squeeze around that concept, but that was what motivated us all at Drybar too, was, just that idea that we were impacting more than just the superficial of what your hair looks like. And I do think that that's like, if you can have that level of a unifying vision from the beginning, then, that you can take it to all sorts of heights.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I could hear it even in the way you described it. You didn't say, "Oh, yeah, we made women look beautiful." You said, "No, we made women feel like badasses in the boardroom. We made that woman feel like Cinderella on going to the ball on her first date." Like you didn't quite say the second one like that, but I could hear behind what you were describing that you truly understood who is my ideal client, what does my ideal client need emotionally and physically with our service. And let's talk about that for a minute, because I will say, I've done lots of sales, marketing, consulting. One of the biggest challenges and holes that I see, especially in emerging brands, is they'll have this concept that's worked, and they've got a couple of locations that have worked, and now they've got an FDD, and now we're ready to franchise. And yet I still see that they don't truly understand who's our actual ideal client here. Whether you're talking about a Drybar experience, you're talking about massage. So can we break that down for a minute? Like maybe let's talk about Squeeze right now. You guys have got a very cool, tech-enabled personalization experience. But I'm confident after hearing you talk and knowing your background in marketing, this is who our ideal client is and why. Do you mind sharing that a little bit and helping us break that down?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it starts first and foremost with people's emotional motivators, and really understanding why someone is coming in to get a massage, and also what are the core things that are going to inspire them to choose one place over another. And again, I mean, I will also say it's not rocket or it's not, I don't mean rocket science. We weren't super scientific. Like we went out with this concept again, based on our own personal experience and the desire that we had to make the experience better. Our tagline is actually a way better massage experience. And, and again, we always used to say at Drybar, we didn't invent blowouts. We didn't invent massage at Squeeze. We were just making everything about the experience that much better. So, so I think that ultimately, it's understanding why people are choosing to get a massage. And most of the time it's relaxation, reprieve, escape, therapy, true therapy, and needing to, recover from an injury, and what type of space is going to make someone feel cared for. And, we actually, and then for us, it's about so much more than the actual massage. It's about how we make people feel. And, for our team, we've really put so much in place to empower them to create a great experience. And we always say that, when someone enters Squeeze, we want it to feel like they're entering your own home. How do you want someone to feel when they come in? You want them to feel warm and welcome and cared for and seen as a person. And so I think that it really comes down to all these very, soft elements of the human experience, and wanting people to feel that you've really thought about every aspect of what will make them feel better. Because and for us at Squeeze, and we used to say this at Drybar, is, you know, someone choosing to come into our space probably means that the hour and a half that they're spending with us is the best part of their day. So it's like, can we think through every single millisecond of their connection with us and just make it so amazing that not only do they want to come back, but, you know, do they want to tell their friends about it? I always used to say at Drybar that I wanted to work myself out of a job, because I really believe at the end of the day that a great experience just naturally creates that viral word of mouth momentum that is so much more powerful than the brand speaking on behalf of itself. So again, it's, you know, one, knowing who your core customer is, but for me, so much of the power of marketing is in creating a great experience and just being thoughtful about how you can like tug on people's heartstrings or make them feel alive or seen or you know, inspired. And and so there's so much nuance that goes into that.
Yeah, what I can see, you've truly mastered that at the the customer experience level. That's coming through loud and clear. And I'm wondering about some advice you might have for brands that are looking for how to target a client. Like, because, you know, a 60-year-old man probably isn't the right guy for your brand. I mean, although they would have a wonderful experience, I'm guessing there's a certain demographic where you've said this group of people, they're underserved, they're generally looking for this type of a service. Have you guys kind of been able to go through that exercise now? And from the outside now, looking for your outbound marketing and driving in traffic, have you guys been able to identify who you feel this is the group, and understanding that anybody can come into your facility and just have an incredible experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's certainly, you know, a core demographic that we have. I would say 25 to 45 is probably, you know, the broader range. If we were to drill it down a little bit further, it's probably, you know, mid 30s to early 40s, people who are focused on health and wellness, and massage and the wellness space in general does skew female. So, you know, we do have a larger percentage of female clientele, but really, you know, we actually do see, we see 13-year-olds, we see 75-year-olds. I actually have a few, you know, older couples who come into our space all the time, and they talk to me about how much they love the app, and they like rave about it, right? So it's like, you don't be too narrow in your thinking, I think I would say, because it's like you will be surprised at, you know, the appeal that your brand and your experience can have to people of all ages and backgrounds. But yes, certainly, you know, there was a core customer that we felt like, you know, would really align and appreciate just the thoughtfulness of our experience. And so, you know, we did think through that as we looked at the branding and the messaging, and certainly, you know, the imagery that we use. All of that is carefully crafted. But from an experience standpoint, I think we've always thought much broader. And so I think that that's an important thing to note is, you know, your experience should be universal. Your messaging and the way that you're targeting through different channels can be more nuanced and specific. But, you know, but I do think it's important, I suppose, depending on what your product or your service is. But for massage, clearly every body literally can benefit from it. So it's like, we didn't want to be too narrow in our thinking.
Oh yeah. Well, in my mind, I it's an exciting field because you nail this experience super well. And now you've got all these other segments you can go after. You've got your folks that spend a lot of time thinking about their bodies, that are, you know, your CrossFitters and your exercise buffs. Like, some of those guys and gals, they desperately need massage because they don't take care of their bodies. They just go work out hard and then go straight to the office after a quick shower. I'm like, uh-oh, you got a lactic acid problem, buddy. Like, so there are all these different subsegments you could go after, but it's, when you're small, you can't go after everyone, right? That's the hardest thing, because saying, okay, or my next 5, you know, target audiences I've got well defined, but we can't go after them right now.
Yes. Well, but I mean, we do have a lot of, to that point, we've got a lot of local marketing tactics that we have certainly put in place for the flagship location, which we opened in March of 2019. But as we think through our franchisee experience, you know, pop-ups at local fitness places is actually a very core aspect of our overall playbook, because that is exactly where our core demographic is. So again, there's definitely ways that you can reach those people in an effective and relatively low cost way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that would honestly probably be a whole podcast in and of itself with us. I'd love to pick your brain on that, Britt. But I thought there's so much we could cover, but one of the things that I find so inspiring and exciting about what you've done is in spite of some personal challenges you had in the past with your overcoming cancer, you're highly motivated. You've got so much energy and you put it all into what you do. And I was curious, if you don't mind, maybe we could shift just to a more personal topic with you and tell us a little bit about your battle with cancer and how that's kind of shaped your motive and for what you do now, and how you even this brand, I feel from reading through some of your backstory, was kind of this taking care of people side of who you are and giving people a great physical experience. I feel like it's all kind of tied to that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I do think at the end of the day, our health is our wealth. And, when you have an experience like I had at a very young age, there's certainly just a different perspective and appreciation to life that you're kind of forced to reevaluate. So I was diagnosed with phase 2 melanoma when I was 25. And, it's one of those things, I can still remember exactly where I was when I got the phone call. And
Yeah.
I didn't have to go through chemo and radiation, thankfully. There's actually very little for melanoma that can be done around that particular type of treatment. And so thankfully, caught it early enough that it didn't enter into my lymph nodes or blood, but I did have to go through a pretty extensive surgery, including not only the removal of the cancer itself, but then also had lymph nodes removed and a massive skin graft, and it was all sorts of grossness that I won't get into. But the recovery process was very long and very draining. My melanoma was on my lower left calf, and so I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair for more than 6 months, and just had quite the recovery process. And so I think that, and actually, believe it or not, multiple years later, I actually also suffered a major back injury, a lower back injury. I had a herniated disc when I was traveling for work, and also, took me out physically for quite a bit. And so both of those experiences really did realign my thinking around wellness in general, and also, again, really what matters and what's most important. So I am very passionate about building this brand and this experience for people, because I just know the value of choosing to focus on your self-care. And massage not only has so much physical benefits, but there's also the mental side of it also. I mean, it really is truly stress relieving and relaxing. So it feels very good to be building something that feels truly meaningful for people in their lives. And again, not just the massage itself, like there's so much that we are doing at Please to make it a differentiated experience for people, so that they feel seen and they feel cared for. We also have a philanthropic partnership with an organization called Canine Companions, and they're the largest provider of service dogs to adults, children, and veterans with disabilities. And for every membership that we sell, we're helping to provide a day of canine support to a person with a disability. So, it just all of a sudden, both for the team and the guest, feels like you're a part of something much bigger than yourself, and also contributing to something much more meaningful than even what we're doing within our four walls. So that really is, where my passion lies. And, I feel very grateful to be building a business like this and to be able to offer this type of experience. Again, not only to our guests, but for our team. We place a ton of effort in making them feel valued and happy. And, we want this to be a great place for them to come to work, and then equally so for our franchisees and, people who are looking to take a leap for themselves. Like, this is a great opportunity, and we've put so much thought into how we're going to scale this business to support our operating partners and make it a feel good experience for everyone across the board. And I think when you have a life altering diagnosis on any level, kind of you look at every day as being a gift and wanting to make the most of it.
Yeah, no, I can feel that. Thank you for sharing it. And
Yeah.
tell me about where things go from here, because obviously that's a great motive and a driver for you. And I can see that it puts a lot of personal care and touch into the experience management that you've got, helping people feel seen through massage. I mean, you could say that about anything, but you've truly done it, I think. So everyone comes through and feels like, hey, it's like Cheers. I'm coming home and I know my name, temperature of the blanket that I want on my bed, right? But
Yes.
where do you guys see yourselves going from here? You're getting into franchising now. What are some of your goals for growing the business now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've got big goals and vision. I think that we can get to 500 units one day. And, certainly we've got a roadmap laid out to get there. We launched our flagship location in March of 2019. We were able to be open for 11 months before the pandemic hit. So, and we took a little bit of a pause
Yeah.
during that time, which, that in and of itself was, certainly challenging and had its own sets of, kind of moments in time where you're really reevaluating and thinking things through. But I feel more and more bullish and confident now than even when we launched that this is the right time to be in this space and building this business. So we actually just recently sold Scottsdale. So Scottsdale will be our first franchise market. It's opening in early 2022. And we're having several conversations with people all around the country. We'll have, more markets to share soon. And I think most important, again, with that 500 being a big outlandish goal and opportunity that, will take several years to build. For us, what's most important is that we're aligning with people who share our values, who understand the differentiated experience that we're really trying to bring to the market. I mean, this is a great industry. It's a great business. There's massive, financial opportunity for our franchisees. But at the end of the day, we're not looking for just a check. We want someone who really does believe in what we're building and will have care and concern for creating a great experience and connecting with their community. And so that's also been an interesting process because, there's a lot of people that we say no to. And we're also very careful in terms of the experience that we have created to even evaluate the level of partnership on both sides from the, franchisor and franchisee perspective. So, but we're having so much fun and certainly, would love to connect with people who all of this resonates with and, wanting to make a difference.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. It's funny how almost every podcast I have with a franchisor or even a consultant in the space, I don't know why this comes up so much, but it's a big hole. And you guys are focused 100% on the right side of it. From my perspective, your brand as a franchisor is so much more important than a check. And a lot of young franchises, this is where the experience of your Drybar team and things, they pay massive dividends with a new venture like this, but a growing venture like this, because you've been around a couple of years now. But they, if you get the wrong folks that don't have the right cultural alignment with you, it can absolutely, especially with your first 3 or 4 locations, can really create challenges. But you really need to create a community around the care and the wellness side of what you're doing. And if they don't buy into that, then let them go get a McDonald's. Let them go get another. There's so many franchises out there that don't necessarily care so much about the cultural alignment, but what you've got is something pretty unique and special. So I'm glad you guys are really focused in on that.
Thank you. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And also, the first 10 to 20 franchisees sell the next 200, right? So it's like you definitely want to make sure that you've got the right people in place to set the standard and the tone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we can talk about the brass tacks. You want the item 19 to look right, and also the validation calls to be good. And that doesn't happen if you've got the wrong people in those seats. So
exactly.
I'm glad you're being disciplined. But boy, Brett, you've got so much good stuff going on for you right now. This is exciting. And Scottsdale coming online, and your first few are the most exciting. And then I assume, a year or 2 from now, I'll bump into you at an IFA event somewhere, and you'll be like, "Oh, we got 35 units already, sold." Forward. I have no doubt you guys are going to be there soon.
Thank you. I so appreciate that, Dave. Yeah, I've loved our conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Of course.